we focus on helping you claim what's rightfully yours, your health and your freedom. We explore the three main areas of health: the physical realm, the biochemical realm, and the mental and emotional realm. We also explore all the areas of lifestyle we can find that will help you live more abundantly, regardless of where you're starting. And remember, in life, you'll either make excuses or create results. You choose. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, and I'm glad to be with you here today. Make sure to head on down to the show notes and click on the link to join our tribe of human-powered life heroes, where we'll update you on new shows, events, product launches, and so much more. Now, it's time to enjoy the show. Okay, here we go. So 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Human Powered Life podcast. We have another amazing guest coming to you today. It's Chris Burres. And if you have not heard of this guy, I think this is gonna blow your mind a little bit, because we're gonna be talking about health performance, human performance, all sorts of different cool things. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Dr. Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share with your audience some kind of cool research that's been done, some cool testimonials. I know you do ultra running, and so I've got an interesting testimonial related to ultra running and sharing science. I think there's a lot of geeky fun in sharing science.
Yeah, and I really like that. I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that, and I think it's important to at least if you start with some real cool data, then you can expand, right? You can learn a little bit, okay, what does this data mean? How does it impact my life? What can it do to my health? And that's really the areas that I look in. And, when I was back and forth figuring out, I'm like, how do I get, how do we make this a show? Right? Like, that's what I was really thinking first. But I'm like, this is really cool. This is funky. Like, I'm looking at, talking about some weird, this molecule, right? It's called a molecule, like ESS60.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what is this stuff? So before we dive into all of the crazy, do me a favor, tell the audience who you are, what you do, and how then, bring in ESS60 or C60. You're the science guy. Yeah. You're the mad scientist, if you will. So you got to bring that in, and I'll figure the questions out after that.
Okay, excellent. So my name is Chris Burres. I'm a co-founder, co-owner of MyVitalC. I'm a scientist. I've been working with carbon nanomaterials actually since 1991. And let's talk a little bit about that, because carbon nanomaterials is certainly a mouthful. In 1985 at Rice University, they discovered the third form of carbon. If you happen to be watching this, I'm holding up a molecule. If you're listening, think about a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The three scientists who discovered that in 1985 won the Nobel Prize for that discovery. The reason they won the Nobel Prize is because it's an amazing molecule. It's the way I describe it, it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So better ink, better tires, better batteries, better photocells. Again, they discovered it in 1985. They won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short 11 years from discovery to actually award of that Nobel Prize. Fast forward to 2012, they actually thought this molecule, the soccer ball molecule, would be toxic. And so they decided, and they also thought man in general would be working with this material on a regular basis. So anytime that's true, you want to understand the toxicity of the molecule. So they did a toxicity study. In that study, they gave Wistar rats, in this case, water, one group of them water, one group of them olive oil, and then another group of them olive oil. And we call this molecule, if it's safe for human consumption, ESS60. So basically, instead of being toxic, the rats that they gave the olive oil with the ESS60 molecule, really the MyVitalC formula to, they lived 90% longer than the control group. So yeah, this is the single longest longevity experimental result in human history. The next best way to live longer is called CR, calorie restriction. I'm sure you've kind of know about that. And a lot of people are doing intermittent fasting these days, which is meant to mimic the benefits of calorie restriction, but the best known and best research way to live longer compared to this particular result is calorie restriction. You restrict your current calorie consumption by about 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. And you can live 30% longer. Maybe it's a marketing thing. Not many people are signing up for the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. They need, maybe a little PR spin. But that's very well researched, and that's in multiple animal models. And so you should be restricting your calories. And there's some good indications that, at least at this point, that intermittent fasting shows some of the blood markers that calorie restriction does. And so there's a very reasonable likelihood that kind of intermittent fasting can have some of, if not all of, the benefits of calorie restriction. But that's, again, a 30% extension of life. That's not take something that's dissolved in olive oil, this soccer ball molecule, this ESS60 molecule that's dissolved in olive oil, and potentially look at a 90% extension of life. That's a pretty phenomenal result. And just one other piece about that research: a typical Wistar rat lives about 32 months, and they have a known amount of tumors. So the longer they live, the more tumor mass they have in their body. The MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, and none of them had any tumors. Right. So you got to be really careful here. I've had conversations with people who are like, oh, that means it's a cancer cure? No. And let me just be very clear about that. No. There's a huge difference between curing a cancer that has metastasized and actually being a cancer, or even just a tumor, because there's no guarantee that these are these benign or malignant tumors. Being a tumor preventative. We know things as simple as good nutrition, good sleep, and exercise are good cancer preventatives and even tumor preventatives. So there is some indication in that result that more research needs to be done on whether it's a tumor preventative, but it's still a pretty phenomenal result.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And, and the people that are probably thinking about the cancer part of that, we think of cancers show up in toxic environments, right? When we have this poor lifestyle for long periods of time. And most people, when they get cancer, or when they say they got cancer, it's usually they've had it for who knows how long. Right? Yep. It's been growing slowly because of a bad internal, possibly, and external environment. So, maybe with these rats, and I'm just, thinking here that, if their internal environment is better, because we know their external environments were the same, their internal environments are getting better. What is the result? Yeah. So, I mean, it would make sense that a better, healthier internal environment can keep us healthier and maybe produce less tumors. I mean, it would only make sense.
Well, and you couple that, I think you're exactly right. And you're onto something when you couple that with, people often ask, well, why do these rats live longer? Like, what's the mechanism? And first off, I like to say people much smarter than me are ultimately going to figure the nuances of that out. What is currently true is the medical community typically believes that aging is an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? So because our bodies are oxidizing, because we're inflamed, that's why we're aging. And it's interesting that this particular product, this formulation, is both a great antioxidant. There's at least one story that shows it, not story, but publication that shows it to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And then in terms of inflammation, you've got to be really careful when it comes to the FDA when you're talking about inflammation, because the FDA has matter-of-factly said that if you're talking about inflammation, you're talking about disease, and our product actually hasn't been evaluated by the FDA. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. What we can say is that our product is good with inflammation as it relates to exercise inflammation. What the FDA doesn't allow us to say, whether it's true or not, that's a different issue. It needs to go through further studies, is that it addresses any other type of inflammation. And one way I like to put it is, we certainly fit in with anti-inflammatory diets. Those are diets known, rich in olive oil is one of the components, and that's our main component in our product. It's actually our main solute in our product. But those the blue zone people who eat these Mediterranean diets rich in olive oil often are associated with people who have reduced incidences of heart attacks, reduced incidences of strokes, and tend to live longer. And so, yeah, I think there's that component. So you think about inflammation. Again, we can't talk about anything other than exercise-related inflammation, but that's ultimately a component of a tumor. It's typical that these tumors and cancers tend to put out inflammatory markers that actually exacerbate the situation inside the body.
Yeah, and I think I didn't even know. Like, to me, when I think inflammation, I just think like, okay, you can run, you can eat, I can eat foods high in omega-6 fatty acids, which are going to jack up our inflammatory response in our body. So it's kind of crazy that they are owning that term. Maybe because they don't want people to be healthy. Who knows? For thought there, people. So, with the rat study, now obviously people, that this product has been created, the MyVitalC has been created. So in this journey, were you your first test rat?
You know what? I wasn't, right. And let me describe what that really looks like, because it's kind of an interesting story. I never really wanted to get into the supplement industry. And you'll hear here in a second that I tried for a very long time not to get into the supplement industry. So we started our company in 1991, manufacturing carbon nanomaterials, these ESS60, and delivering it to research institutions around the world. So if there's some research institution, IBM Labs, Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station, MIT, that you've heard of, and that's done research on carbon nanomaterials, they've probably purchased it from us. And that's a very exacting environment, right? They place an order on our website. We ship them product. The first thing they do is they take that product, they give it to a grad student. That grad student has access to an HPLC, that's a high performance liquid chromatography machine. And they confirm that we sold them what we told them we were going to sell them. This is almost the antithesis of the supplement market, right? Because how many HPLCs do you have at your house, or any of your listeners? The answer is typically none. Every now and then I bump into that really geeky person who has an HPLC in his room. Okay. But you don't have the ability to test the equipment, test the products. I often kind of make some comments about buying supplements on Amazon. We have our products on Amazon, but Amazon is an interesting place where people are like, oh, it's got 5 stars. It's a supplement. That must mean it's a good supplement. And I would argue, no, that doesn't mean that at all. Because just think about vitamin C. If somebody has given a 5-star review about vitamin C, here's what we can probably all agree on. They didn't weigh the pills, right? So, so they don't even know it's 1 gram or half a gram. They certainly didn't stick it in an HPLC and make sure it's ascorbic acid, right? They probably didn't even count the pills, right? Unless it was really low in the bottle and the bottle was half empty, and then they decided to count it. Like, I joke, but this is probably reasonably true. The reason it's a 5-star rating is because they haven't died and Amazon has harassed them enough to actually leave a review. So now it's a 5-star review. So going on to Amazon and thinking that these reviews are the way to determine a good supplement is just not a good strategy. The better strategy is do the research on the company, understand the owners, and understand that you're getting a product from a high quality person. So I think that actually kind of covered a couple of things that I think is really important to understand where you're getting your supplements from, so that you're getting a high quality supplement.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think about that. Like, well, how many reviews does it have? Oh, it's got 300 5-star. What does that mean? It means they got the shipment fast. Who knows what it means?
Yeah.
Like, really? So it's only to talk about getting into. So you're making these particles, you're shipping them to different research labs around the world. And how did you go from doing that? Like you said, everything, it's in everything, like maybe like microchips or whatever it is, and tires, and it's stuff's in everything. Which is kind of like, in my mind, like, okay, how do we go from a car tire into a supplement?
Something that gets consumed. So, well, it starts off, this will be a funny start to this segment. It starts off with a label that is not for human consumption. So imagine us. We're carbon nanomaterial scientists from 1991 all the way really till about mid 2013. We don't have the phrase "not for human consumption" on our labeling because it's just a non-issue, right? It's going into tires and inks and batteries and photocells. The publication comes out where the rats live 90% longer. And we get these, and I'm going to say affectionately, this wacko group of biohackers. And I say affectionately because I became one very quickly, right? Who started calling us and ordering the product from us and then sharing testimonials with us. And it was really like, yeah, my knee pain's gone, or, my hair is growing faster, whatever the testimonial was. And we were kind of going back to them and saying, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption. Now, I want to be clear, the research then and now is very clear, right? So carbon 60 is the kind of chemical name. It's the industrial product. And there is peer-reviewed published research that shows carbon 60, when improperly processed, is harmful. ESS 60 is C60 that's been processed properly. Even back in 2013, it was clear that if you process this properly, if you're dealing with ESS60, it's safe. We're just conservative scientists who, when that first person called and said, how much in a dose? Our response, we're thinking, well, wait a minute, you mean the stuff that goes in ink and tires and batteries and photocells? You're asking my opinion of how much you should put in your body? I mean, my opinion today, or back then, was none. like you should put none of that stuff in your body. And people kept pushing that envelope. Biohackers are a smart group of people who do research, who look at the literature that's out there, and have made the decision, hey, this is an opportunity to live longer. Certainly, we're having a monumental societal change in understanding what living longer might mean. And that was, I think the biohackers back in 2013 were ahead of the game and doing smart stuff. And so really from about 2013 until about the latter part of 2017, we were doing research. My business partner and I were getting a couple calls a week, people sharing amazing testimonials with us about the product. And we're like, yeah, but do we really want to go into that business? Like we're happy selling to research institutions. Are we comfortable selling this same molecule, this ESS60 molecule, into the supplement space? And we had decided no. In fact, in that time frame, I found a peer-reviewed published paper that said 50% of the supplements that are on the market do not have in them what they say they have in them. And you compare and contrast that with, I'm delivering to a research organization, they give it to a grad student or a research associate, and they test and make sure that what I sold them is the right thing. Like they're just night and day kind of industries. Finally, in 2017, a guy with a really big YouTube following starts talking about all the benefits he's getting taking it on a daily basis. And our phone just started, it went from 2 calls a week to like 10 calls a day. And so I, get a meeting with my business partner. I'm like, hey, what are we going to do with this? And we really asked ourselves 2 questions. The first question is a moral question. Am I comfortable selling this? And the reality is I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team takes it. I give it to my mom. I'm like, yes, I'm comfortable selling it. And then the next is the FTC and the FDA, and you've got to cross the T's and dot the I's. And we've certainly have done that. And so it was really about in 2018 that I started taking it on a regular basis, and that we started marketing the product and really trying to get more people to be aware of the research and just make an informed decision for themselves.
Yeah. So I guess I have a couple of questions that I probably should have been asked a little earlier. What's a nanoparticle?
Okay. So a nanoparticle is anything that's on nanoscale, and that's intentionally built that way. So if you look at this, right? So again, I'm holding up the soccer ball shaped molecule. It's only got 60 atoms in it, right? So it's about 10 angstroms across, just under 10 angstroms across. That's the nanoscale. And if something is produced intentionally at the nanoscale, then it's actually considered a nanomaterial. And there's an interesting example here. Cat litter, the reason cat litter is such a great odor absorber is because it's got nanoscale pockets in those chunks that you see in the cat litter. But it's not considered a nanomaterial because it's not produced for that reason. It's actually cat litter's mind. So it's not a nanomaterial, even though the functionality that actually ends up working is the nanoscale of it. So that's a nanomaterial.
Okay, so with the ESS60, we know it's a nano material. What is the benefit of having it as a nanomaterial versus not? Hey, we're giving you a short break here where you can head down to the show notes or lifestylelocker.com and join our tribe of human-powered life heroes. You'll be the first to know about new shows, events, product launches, affiliate specials, and more. And now, back to the show.
Okay, great question. So people ask, why is it in oil? And it actually dissolves in oil. It's not water soluble. And you can actually, if you're going to have some of the ESS60 molecule in your hand, it's just going to be a black powder. It's going to be like crystalline sugar, except it's black and finer particles. Each of those crystals is, of course, made up of millions of atoms, and they're not readily bioavailable. So if you can consume it, there's lots of research that says you consume it, you just excrete it out, but not much of it gets absorbed into the body. When you dissolve it in olive oil, it's a true solution. So you're down to the monomolecular level. So individual soccer ball molecules are floating around in this oil. By the way, you can't actually dissolve that much. It doesn't have a high solubility rate. We get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in the olive oil. But the benefit of that is that it is in fact monomolecular. So you're down to that really nanoscale. And so when you consume it, your body can readily absorb that molecule. Some of the potential benefits, it is known to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I've heard about nanoparticles crossing blood-brain barrier.
And that for good cause can make people nervous, right? Because it's often the case that as pharmaceutical companies are working with drugs, they'll often find that it crosses the blood-brain barrier and really ultimately come to understand that's not a good thing. And then they'll back off of that drug. They'll just drop it because that's something that you've got to understand well. In our case, we do know it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and we actually see mental gains, right? So gains in focus and energy is something that comes across, and that could be a multitude of reasons, and we'll talk about our most consistent testimonial. But we actually don't have a single negative testimonial at this point. So tens of thousands of people have taken this molecule, and we don't have any negative results at this point.
Okay, so I think so. Like there's lots of questions just keep coming up. So with when we're taking this supplement, it can cross the blood-brain barrier. You mentioned like 10,000 or tens of thousands, we'll say, of these different testimonials coming in. What are some of the most what are like people taking it for?
Yeah.
I think, it's good for me. Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So first off, you look at the biohacking community that was first taking this. And this is also, I like, it wasn't until really about 2017 that we decided to market this as an actual supplement. It was just sold as, hey, there's a rat experiment. It was done in the University of Paris. It had absolutely amazing results. Here's the oil that they used, basically. So we've processed it, and it's ESS60. And so here it is, with no marketing material. You might experience this or that or whatever. And they were coming back to us. So that's the biohackers. I'm thinking that their mindset was, well, this is longevity, right? Like this is a longevity. It's a phenomenal longevity result. I'm a biohacker. One of the things that I would like to do is live longer. And so I'm going to take it. And then they started, and this is not surprising. I think we would be very surprised if something that caused you to live longer did not provide health benefits, right? Again, I can't make any claims about health benefits, but we would be very surprised if it just, allowed you to live longer and you just had the same kind of decrepit path that our current understanding of aging maps out. And so they started reporting these other benefits. Our most consistent testimonial, and this is very unique, is that people take it in the morning. They report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. I'm not aware of anything you can take that will positively impact your sleep that night, right? Most of the things that are intended to positively impact your sleep, and there's some good things out there. I like valerian root is actually a really good kind of mind calmer to help you sleep well. You got to be very careful with melatonin. It is actually a hormone, and it does need to be properly dosed and taken at a very precise time, or it can actually cause detrimental effects in the morning, specifically like immense amounts of grogginess if it's not done right. But those you take at night, and then let's throw in, there's a book out there called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Absolutely amazing book about sleep. I call it the scariest book you'll ever read about sleep, the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, except it scares you to sleep, not to stay away from sleep, right? Because it's 25 years of Dr. Walker's research on sleep and how a lack of sleep, how it's detrimental to your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. It's really a phenomenal book. And in that book, he talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry, which is a prescription industry. And you take these drugs right before you go to sleep. And what they do is very interesting. So we actually have a chemical in our body called adenosine. It's actually the A in the ATP process in our mitochondria. We'll get a little geeky there. That A is adenosine, and that builds up in our bodies. And as it builds up, it causes us to desire sleep. These quote unquote sleep aids, prescription sleep aids, knock you out. They relieve the chemical pressure of adenosine. So you wake up without the desire to sleep, but they do not allow you to get the REM and the NREM sleep that is actually the healing sleep that you really need. And I compare and contrast that with ours. Theirs you take right before you go to sleep, knocks you out. Ours you actually take in the morning, and you sleep better that night. And then as soon as you throw better sleep into the equation, you end up with all sorts of other improvements. In fact, you could go back to Dr. Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, and look at, well, let's just undo all the negative things he reports in that book, right? Because you're getting better sleep. You've got better cardiovascular health. You've got better emotional control. Your diet's better. Your processing of insulin is better. Like all of these things get better with sleep. And if that's the only thing that this product is doing, and again, better, smarter scientists will figure out what's actually going on. If it positively impacts your sleep, it's going to positively impact all those areas of your physicality.
Yeah, sleep is very, very important.
Yes.
Very important, right? It's something you have to do.
Yeah.
So, in this conversation so far, so I'm thinking, like this just sounds really like a really cool molecule, nanoparticle.
Yeah, both.
Right?
Yeah,
both. So I was thinking this as you were just going through the sleep. I'll go, wait, I'm trying to understand this the right way. Was this a molecule or nanoparticle that was created or found?
Yeah. So the way it was found was in a reactor where it was created, and then it was later discovered in nature. Right. So, so I can talk about that. If you take the soot of a candle flame, right? So usually collect it on a cold plate, get that black soot. That's got parts per million, parts per billion of the raw C60 molecule. So we've all had some in our bodies, on our bodies, around our bodies. It's just been in very small quantities. The way they discovered it is they had this kind of vacuum chamber. They took carbon samples, and they shone a laser at the carbon samples, which ablated the carbon. So you've got this little puff of carbon, and then they used an inert gas to puff that carbon into a mass spectrometer. And there's where they came to understand that there was a predominance of clusters of 60 carbon atoms. And if you think about what carbon typically does, it typically makes graphite sheets. And you would ask yourself, well, why is there a predominance of a flat graphite sheet of 60 versus 59 or 61, right? Like that just doesn't make sense. And that's why they really honed in on it. And like, okay, there's got to be something unique about 60. And lo and behold, the soccer ball has 60 indices. And that's what is the buckyball now.
Okay. So now let's shift gears and talk about it. So, with those testimonials that we mentioned, I know before we recorded, we were talking about, an ultra marathoner, because a lot of our audience are active, and not every I'd say like a fraction of a percent of our audience is probably ultra marathoners, is my guess. But that's like, if it can help someone that's going to that far of an extreme for fun, right? It can
Yes.
benefit the person that wants to run a mile or a 5K.
Yeah.
Right. We can translate it backwards that way. It's just like eating healthy, or just like, getting good sleep is not only going to help the person who wants to do something that's micro, it's going to help the person that's going to do that same thing in a macro way. So give us, like, tell me about, like, talk about this ultra marathoner that was using your product, and what kind of experience they had.
Yeah. So his name's Anthony Kunkel, and you can go out. He's on Instagram and he posts regularly. I think this last weekend he ran something that was like, maybe it was like a 25 miler and then a 20K in the final day. And it was different days, 3 days in a row. And the last one was a marathon. He called me, really, for me, it felt out of the blue. And he's like, hey, I got to share with you. I've tried your product. I was taking one serving size, and that's about 5 mils or 1 teaspoon. And I didn't really notice anything, but I'd done enough research. I thought, man, there's probably something here. So I tripled the serving size. And when I did that, I was just blown away. And he goes on, he's very analytical. So he's cycling on in different blocks. He's cycling on and off the product, kind of keeping aware of what's going on. He's got great documentation in his diary. And what he said with me, which just kind of floored me, because I've never heard anything like this, was, I don't believe that MyVitalC helps me with exercise recovery. That's what a lot of people are looking for. I believe it prevents damage in the first place. And the reason I say that is because in the last 10 miles of a 50-mile run, where leg strength and stability were previously a problem, they're no longer a problem. And that's pretty phenomenal, right? Like, you're looking at something that is again, I've never heard of anything that starts talking about preventing the damage in the first place, right? Like, you have good nutrition and be in great shape going into it, but you're going to come out, damaged goods. It's just a lot of miles. And he goes on, and I've actually interviewed him, and I got the opportunity to meet him the weekend before last up in Austin. He was there for South by Southwest, and got a chance to meet him. And he is one of the biggest fans of our product, and I'm so happy to be working with him. And I just gave to my content team, basically an article that he wrote needed to be cleaned up, and we'll be getting that up onto our website.
Really cool. So preventing, like, the proactive side of the movement, that's big, because I know, like, me as an ultra athlete as well, recovery is huge, and I interviewed someone earlier today, and it's, that is one of my superpowers. Like, I can run a 50 miler on Saturday and show up in my office and take care of, dozens, if not 100 patients, walking around my office as a chiropractor with, and they wouldn't even know I walked 5 miles a day.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't have that sort of, so I really would be interested to see, like what else is possible.
Yeah.
Like, that's in a good way. Like, I'm not taking some kind of pharmaceutical, which, it may have this one good thing, but you're going to have 72 different bad things that are going to show up.
And he's an interesting character, and his approach is so analytical. I mean, at one point he was like, he told me, I'm cycling off of it because I'm concerned that it's giving, that it's providing so much value that my body may be getting weaker in other areas, right? Like, if you throw on a knee brace, you gotta understand your other knee is gonna, carry some of that load. And he was worried that MyVitalC was carrying a load that his body wasn't having to. And his ultimate conclusion was no, like, it's an enhancer. It's not a crutch, if you will.
Oh, that's huge. That's really important, because a lot of people will use things. We'll take like a pre-workout or one of these gel shot things to try to have that boost. And I'm not a big fan of those. And I tell my patients that run, like, the New York City Marathon, I'm like, if you start with those things, you're going to have to nonstop the whole race, because the minute you get rid of that blood sugar that's got you on that high, you're just going to nosedive. Like, you're going to, like, it's going to be bad. And then the next day you're going to be sore as all hell.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, when they do that, that's either they bonk completely or break down at, midway through the marathon, or that next few days they're like walking like they have like, broomsticks like glued to or taped to their knees so they can't bend. Right. So it's really neat to hear that you having that proactivity, that he's cycling in and out. So what other things are you seeing, like from an athletic perspective? That's huge, right? Whether it's, from a runner, that's one thing, but I can imagine that, it's going to happen across the board with different
aspects.
Different types of athletes. And you mentioned like mental acuity, and we have, like lots of smart people in this world doing lots of different things. We're working on technology, scientists like yourself, we're doing this stuff. So what kind of feedback have you been given, in your testimonials by people that are just, I'm not the athlete, I'm not like the ultra athlete, I'm a normal Joe or Jane. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah. So I'll share my personal testimonials. And again, I think it's the right thing to do. I've already shared the FDA disclaimer. I want to share it again. And I also want to share this, like any of the testimonials that I give are testimonials that I have actually had contact with the particular customer. There's a trail back to them, or it's my own. And if it is my own, just know that everybody is an N of one. I love that kind of geeky science. Everybody is different. Your reaction may be different. And I'm not claiming that if you get on the product, this will be your reaction. Like that's not a claim that we can make yet. We've got a lot of research to do before we can say that. In my case, I played soccer for 25 years. And when I quit playing soccer, I had a knee pain on my left knee. And I had that from the point I quit until really 2018, when I started taking this product in earnest, and that pain really hasn't come back. I do get other aches and pains. So I'm not saying, hey, even in my case, I do get aches and pains. They come and go, but that particular knee pain, I was just acutely aware of, and is gone and just hasn't come back. So I think that's fairly impressive. And it ties in. I've actually got a testimonial from my dentist who talks about, he's bent over patients like you're bent over patients. And I love what he said. He said, I feel like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, except after he was oiled, right? Like he just feels more flexible. So that's the knee pain. And then the other thing, I really am the geeky guy that you see in front of you. I have a spreadsheet of my migraines. I used to get 4 or 5 migraines a year. The spreadsheet goes back to 2014. And I was actually, the purpose of the spreadsheet was to try and figure out like what was happening. Was it after an intense soccer game or a workout or drinking or whatever, and try and understand these migraines, because migraines suck. If you've never had one, good, bless you. If you've had them, you know how much they suck. And so I'm tracking migraines in 2018, and again, 4 or 5 a year. In 2018, when I started taking this product on a regular basis, I didn't get a single migraine, not one that year. And you look at that, and you include my wife's testimonial. So my wife, and I always remember the number 9 because they would give her a prescription. I think it's Sumatran or something close to that. That only came with 9 pills per month. They wouldn't give her any more than 9. When she had more than 9 migraines in a month, she would just have to suffer anything past 9. So she had 9+ migraines a month. When it took me a while, right? Convincing your spouse to try something that they have no reason to try is sometimes hard. Finally got her to try it, and she's down to 1 or 2 every other month. So these are pretty phenomenal results. I also like to share an interesting one, which is related to kind of mental health. And again, if you're getting better sleep, your mental health is better. Your physical, emotional, mental well-being is better. I got some product to her. She's out of the UK. She sent in her videos. And as she started the video, she was like, so I'm in the process of quitting smoking, which is arguably the worst time you would ever want to get anything positive out of somebody's mouth, right? Like quitting smoking. If you've ever done it, my parents quit smoking multiple times. Their joke was quitting is easy, not starting is the hard part. It's not a good time to be getting a good testimonial about, a cutting edge product. Yeah. But she went on and actually gave a very good testimonial. And one of the phrases, and this comes in kind of subtle ways from a lot of different people, is she said, I find myself having a longer fuse with her young child, right? And that's about like the mental and emotional capacity to handle the stress of children. Children are I have twins. They're 11-year-old twins, boy, girl. They are very stressful. And to have a longer fuse with your kids is a really, I think, important feature of a supplement and again, it probably born out of just better sleep.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, like we said earlier, like when we first started, when I was talking, it's better internal environments, like, because you can always control the external, but you have a huge possibility to control that internal, like what you put in your body, on your body, it's going to have that impact. So for sure, doing something that's going to be proactive can have profound effects in lots of different areas, like taking good vitamin C. Like, like it's going to not just be like, oh, my immune system is a little better. No, like there's other pieces of that puzzle,
Yeah.
Which, and they may not know everything anyway, right? Like this, I don't think anybody will ever know everything, no matter how far we search. I think the more we know, the more we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, so, you're a scientist, so you have to know that one, right?
I'm a scientist, so I'm consistently confirming that I don't know much.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a scientist, and I know when I learn something and I start to look a little further, I'm like, holy crap, it's
a whole new world.
Yeah. It really is. That's, people talk about going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's like almost too easy. I'm like, oh God, I'm always like, what are you getting into now?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
I don't know. I'll tell you in 4 hours.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, my brain's fried, smoke's coming out of my ears, So where are the best places, Chris, for people to find you, the product? I would keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've made a URL really for your audience. They can go to myvitalc.com/human powered, right? And so that's myvitalc.com/human powered. When they go there, we've got, some content and then the individual products. What I recommend to people is you can buy the individual product or you can get on subscription. There's a 25% discount on subscription. So go ahead and go on subscription. You can, in fact, cancel at any time. We've got like 500 5-star reviews on Google. So our team is not trained to talk you out of canceling. It's just, I want you to take advantage of that 25% discount. So go on subscription. Then we also have a coupon that's good for $15 off of the initial order. And the coupon code is human powered. And again, they can get $15 off of their code. Now we do have a face serum. This is relatively new. You can imagine I didn't want to get into supplements originally. This is even one further stretch. We just had a business partner who was like, I think this is going to be really good. And I'm floored by the positive testimonials that we get about it. So we're putting together an inside out package where you can consume it and then put it on your skin. We also have a dog and cat version. And it comes in for some people. So basically, just to describe the process, we've got one group of packaging that's little small plastic ampules. They're BPA free, and it's exactly the 5 mils or the 1 teaspoon. Some people don't. You just squeeze the oil in your mouth and consume it. Tastes like olive oil. Some people don't like the taste of olive oil, so we actually do have capsules. Capsules and also these ampules are good for traveling, but typically we just sell it in a bottle, and I just take it straight out of the bottle. In fact, my routine is kind of interesting. Are you familiar with Bulletproof Coffee?
Of course.
Yes. So it's ghee. Bulletproof Coffee is ghee with MCT. Our MCT product, actually, when you add the ESS60 molecule to it, it's a beautiful purple color. And so I kind of call it purple coffee. Instead of using Dave Asprey's Brain Octane, I use our MCT with the ESS60 molecule in it. While that's blending, right? You got to blend it because it's oil and water, don't mix. I take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil product. If you're just going to order one thing, order the olive oil product. It's got the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule.
Okay.
And I would argue, more importantly, as a scientist, that's where all the research is. So the olive oil is the thing to go with.
Okay. Very cool. Well, everybody head over. If you don't remember these links, scroll down in the show notes. You will see it. And I'm going to urge everybody to head over to lifestylelocker.com, and you will get a chance to follow the next few minutes of our conversation, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. It's all video. I'll see y'all there. And Chris, this has been a blast so far. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Josh.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Human Powered Life podcast. Make sure to head over to lifestyledoctor.com to check out all the details on the show and to watch part 2 of this episode, which is only in video format. We also have this audio portion in video format if you want. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, for the Human Powered Life podcast, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with you as a Human Powered Life hero. Remember to join the tribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.